The shutdown was pretty intense for me personally. I personally went through a pretty dark time for a few months there, and it didn't help that there wasn't very much wine business to be done. Because if you think about my position as a distribution rep, I'm inherently reacting to business that's being requested from me. If they're not doing any of that, well, then I don't have anything to do.
We took a family vacation to California at the end of February, and there was no worries, no hesitations, no thoughts about that. And I still even think at that point they were talking about it in the media, but there were no rumblings in DC. I think it was a restaurateur in New York City that decided to close their restaurants ahead of any citywide restrictions, and then we kind of laughed that off, thinking that was a little bit sort of overzealous. But just based on feeling with employees and some interactions with guests, kind of getting toward the end there, we made the decision to kind of close down for 2 weeks. And that was actually a day before DC announced the closures of restaurants for 2 weeks. And you need to make decisions in the moment. And obviously with, sort of the best intentions, the best education behind it. But we decided to make that move and close the restaurant before DC decided to do so citywide.
We had a lot of conference calls and discussions, so we were preparing for it before it even happened. We knew it was coming. So basically, we got the call that it's time to shut down, and what I did is I notified everyone on staff that was there at the time, and then I contacted everyone else via email, and just kind of let them know, and basically gave them full transparency of what Shoe Carnival is going to be doing and where we're going. I would say for 2020, my biggest pain point was the uncertainty. You never knew when you were opening, when you were closing. It was just, and unfortunately, since we're in Marion County here in Indy, we were shut down a lot longer than other stores within our state. We had stores that were actually 20 miles away that could open, but we couldn't, and that was challenging, especially when you have customers who are now shopping those said stores, but they don't have the merchandise, and they can't come here to get it, even though we might have it.
So we were around 58 employees pre-COVID, and then post-COVID we flexed anywhere between 12 and 18 as we stand right now. But all 18 as it stands right now were previous pre-COVID employees. So that kind of loyalty that they've stayed with us, through this, as we know, as many people have, transitioned out of the industry or had the ability to kind of sit back and wait for things to kind of settle down. I know Jeremiah and myself are incredibly proud to have those people stay with us.
The real problem at the beginning of coronavirus is that whether or not you wanted to be hopeful about it, nobody knew how long this was going to last. So, there was a period there for about 3 weeks where we were barely selling any wine because restaurants didn't need it. Retail shops were a little spooked in, I'm saying, late March to early April. And so even the retail shops were kind of in a holding pattern, selling what they had on their shelves and just hoping to figure out what they needed to do. The old way to sell wine in a retail context is to get an appointment with a retailer, walk in the door, line up a bunch of wines on the counter. I have this, and this. A lot of times you try to target it to what the need is. Maybe your buyer will say, hey, I want to taste Italian wine or I want to taste French wine. But you come in and physically stand in front of them and show them the wines. But in this new dynamic, it's all on email. Every now and then I'll do a Zoom tasting with a customer where I'll literally send them bottles of wine, and then we'll get on Zoom and they'll taste what I've dropped off out in front of their shop. And then we do it on camera. So it's a very different dynamic, but it is definitely forward-moving business in ways that is not happening in restaurants.
When DC shut down, or we made the decision to close, which was a Saturday, and then our last service was Sunday. We closed Monday, Tuesday, and instantly opened back up to go on Wednesday. phone orders only, handwritten orders, and it was kind of bananas, to be quite honest. On a busy Saturday night at the Dabney, between the bar and the dining room, would serve 200-ish guests, a touch more, and to go that first Saturday we were doing 300. So with the reduced staff and not as much overhead, it was, as much as I hate to say it, was a really great business model for the first couple months.
Shoe Carnival's always been good about getting on the head of the curve when it comes to our e-commerce sales, and by doing that, it kind of prepared us for 2020. And when 2020 hit, everything just kind of exploded. We were packing on a normal daily basis 200 to 300 shoes a day.
I think that this past year has taught restaurateurs and even employees how to think outside the box. To go is something we never would have considered. E-commerce is something we never would have considered. Now that is like riding a bike. Do I think that we will continue to offer that option once we're allowed to open back up full capacity? I doubt it, but it gives a greater confidence in knowing that if a situation were like this to occur in the future, that we know how to navigate it. We know how to potentially expand and do other business models. I think that unfortunately there are those that that haven't survived this past year, and then there are those that have sort of creatively thrived. And it's really interesting and it's really exciting to see how creative our colleagues have gotten in order to keep the doors open and keep their staff employed and stay happy.
I think the big lesson from 2020 was take your normal assumptions of retail and forget all about it. Retail, you got your brick and mortar stores and you got your e-commerce stores. Brick and mortar stores have been around forever. And then when 2020 hit, it really changed the perspective of shopping. People can shop now more at their fingertips, and it actually made people who completely dreaded shopping online, self-included. You ended up shopping a lot. I shop more now online than I ever have. And, it's about the convenience. It's about the instant gratification. I'm part of that crowd. We like instant gratification, which is why I think e-commerce is the most important thing that small businesses need to understand. And it doesn't matter what your business is. It could be retail, it could be a restaurant. That's why I'm sure DoorDash just exploded. A lot of people, business-wise, a lot of businesses realized we could capitalize a lot more on online sales than brick and mortar stores alone. So it helps relieve the pressure from brick and mortar stores. I'm sure businesses, and I'm sure Shoe Carnival alone, I'm sure we're going to evaluate payroll needs and staffing needs, and not in a negative way per se. It could be in a positive way. Maybe we need more staffing or more payroll to fulfill online orders. Maybe we need to make an online order fulfillment position. These are things that we will evaluate into the future. If because we don't implement it immediately, I foresee it happening. You either adapt or die.